The Office of Child and Family Services has built a terrible record in managing the safety and the welfare of at-risk children. In our state, watching the Office of Child and Family Services deteriorate over the years has been heartbreaking, much like watching the Titanic creep toward the iceberg responsible for its doom, and in real time, and without the ability to change its course. Yet, there's hope. Well-documented failures in the Maine's Child Welfare Agency may soon come to an end. A recent presentation by its newly appointed director outlining some anticipated changes shows there may be a chance for the Office of Child and Family Services to avoid the iceberg after all. Hello, this is Senator Jeff Timberlake of Androscoggin County. It's my pleasure to join you for this week's Republican Radio Address. In the past 3 years, more children with whom the Office of Child and Family Services has involved have died than in the previous 6 years combined. Let me put that into perspective. 99 children with the Office of Child and Family Services involvement have died since 2020, including 9 so far this year. The situation led the Legislative Government Oversight Committee, of which I am a member, to begin an investigation into these cases starting in 2021. What we uncovered in the years since is the numbers didn't lie. There were real systemic problems within the Office of Child and Family Services, all validated by the Maine Child's Welfare Ombudsman, who found substantial issues in more than half of the cases she reviewed over the past 3 years. When we conducted public hearings last year, we found the problems began with leadership. Well, at least the former director of the Office of Child and Family Services, who resigned last year after his employees testified that they work within a broken system and were being reviewed to death. Some even described their office as a war zone, the Office of Child and Family Services itself as a sinking ship. Maybe he got the hint, as well as the top person in charge at the Department of Health and Human Services, who allowed this toxic culture to fester. She just left on Friday. But I digress. I originally put a bill completely to separate the Child Welfare Division from DHHS. While LD 779 was tabled and never got a vote in the House, the goal of the bill was simple. Let's at least start the discussion of what a rebuilt Office of Child and Family Services, one that is more efficient, effective, would look like. Nothing else we've tried over the years has worked, and a drastic change is needed. Remarkably, though, that discussion is happening now. Before the Department of Health and Human Services Commissioner rode off into the sunset, she put a person in charge of the Office of Child and Family Services who had come from the trenches. It didn't take long for the new Office of Child and Family Services Director, Bobby Johnson, to at least get some outside advice. A recent assessment conducted by the Public Consulting Group confirmed many of the same operational leadership challenges we identified during the government oversight hearings. The report released by Johnson this week also outlined a host of structural changes that are needed for the Office of Child and Family Services to be successful. Much of the assessment involved a clear lack of decision-making authority, especially critical when determining a child's safety risk during initial investigations and subsequent reunification efforts. It also showed a lack of feedback when decisions made by frontline staff were reversed by upper management. That's like trying to steer a ship and not giving the navigator any coordinates or directions to steer by. Poor communication is not a good way to operate by any means whatsoever. Most importantly, the report showed that current leadership is structured geographically, not by core function or process. Anyone who is in the private sector will tell you that grouping similar core functions into a singular focused department or section is the best way to operate. Manufacturing is not the same as sales or distribution. That said, there are gaps in the report that would still need to be addressed. Public Consulting Group identified some district administrators who operated better than others through cross-functioning teams, much like an emergency department operates today. That should be made universal. But with the Office of Child and Family Services under new leadership and armed with at least a basic plan that only validates that the legislature's investigation already found, we have a unique opportunity before us to right the ship. However, let's be clear, the anchor rope is quite short. I've long said that the Office of Child and Family Services must get it right. If they don't, children die. Because of the years of failures that have already happened, a lot of trust has to be rebuilt, and there's only a short time to do it. Still, we should all wish for success. Precious children who are at risk depend on it. I thank you all. Have a great weekend. This is Senator Jeff Timberlake.